Hi, it's Elder, and today I want to talk about dimension units for height and width in web design. So most web design apps like Blocks for Mac actually produce very good looking responsive websites by default automatically, but sometimes we want to change some sizing manually, and usually we can do that using the free units. It is pixels, percentage, and viewport width or height.
Let's start with pixels, and here I have a column, this form inside, and let's say I want to make this form 700 pixels wide. I will open the custom class, make sure that I have selected pixels, and I will type 700. So now this form is 700, and no matter how small or big the screen is, this form will always stay 700. And of course it means that on the smaller breakpoints it will be too big. Blocks for Mac actually allows us to switch to other breakpoints and make adjustments for this width. So we can change, for example, this to 500 and it will look okay. But this way the responsiveness is not very fluid. So how can we improve that? Well, instead of using pixels, we can use percentage. So let's open this custom class and instead of pixels, use percentage. And let's type, for example, 90. So now this form will always use 90% width of the parent. And parent in this case is the column. So as you can see on all breakpoints, this form occupies 90% of the column. But then what about viewport units? Well, viewport units allow us to set the size of the element depending on the size of the viewport, basically the browser window. So for example, let's select this first block here and let's say we want to make it occupy the half of the screen. So we can open the custom class and set the height of this block to be 50 VH. And as you can see, this block now occupies the half of this screen. So if we want, for example, to occupy 90% of the screen, we can just type 90. And if we want to make it full screen, we just type 100. And if we want to go further, just type 150. And as you can see, we have a huge banner here. In addition to setting the exact sizes, we can also set the minimum and maximum values. And let's say we want to create a banner which is at least full screen tall, and when there is more content, it should be easily expandable. So if we just type 100 VH like we did before, it will be full screen, of course, but when we add more content, for example, a couple of images, you can see that it is not very good. So what we can do here is instead of typing the exact size we need, we will get rid of that and instead we will set the minimum height. So let's set it to be 100 VH. And now, as you can see, we have the block which is allowing us to see all of the content. But at the same time, when we delete this content, as you can see, it is still occupying the full screen. Let me give you one more example, the maximum value. So let's say we want to have a form which is no more than 700 pixels. So if we just use the old method and put the 700 pixels here in the width, it will be 700, but of course on other breakpoints it will be too big. And we can adjust it manually, but what we can do instead is set the maximum value to be 700. And this way, it will never get bigger than 700 pixels. But when this element will be viewed on smaller screens, it will automatically resize to become smaller. In addition to all that, we can actually combine the minimal and maximum values as well as multiple units. For example, let's say we want this form to be no more than 700 pixels wide, but at the same time, on the smaller breakpoints, we want it to be just 90% of the column. So by applying both of these units here, we are making sure that this form is never getting bigger than 700 pixels wide, but at the same time on the smaller devices, the form will occupy only 90% of its parent. And in this case, of course, it is this column.
So to summarize, when you want to set the exact size for your element, just type it in pixels. When you want more flexibility, use percentage. When you want to set the size of the element depending on the screen size of your browser, use VH or VW, and combine them, these minimal or maximum values, to create the perfect responsive layout. If you found this video useful and want to see more videos like this, please give it the thumbs up and consider subscribing. If you want to learn blocks, visit blocksmaster.com for more in-depth tutorial just like this one. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.